see it says we're recording -6, -7. That's my IQ level at the moment.
Right. Yeah, it's
dropping
dropping and
faster,
as we
yes.
go along.
So it's all right for you. You're Sunday morning. This is last thing on a Sunday night for me.
Yeah, sorry. You had to live in the UK.
I go straight from this into watching Dark Shadows, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to follow Dark Shadows plot lines tonight.
Oh, no. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So you know what else is bad?
Go on.
I heard that Captain Jack visited the Virgin Islands once.
Oh.
Now they're just called the Islands.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a headline that they'd found something probing Uranus from NASA. And I'm just thinking, it's just like, oh.
It was Captain Jack.
Yeah.
So do you know the difference between a Dalek and Stephen Moffat?
Quite frankly, I would like to see the universe rid of one of them, but I'm not going to specify which one.
Well, the answer is one of these is a heartless creature that will kill everyone you love, and the other is a Dalek.
Yes.
I'm guessing you don't like Stephen Moffat.
Nobody likes Stephen Moffat.
Except nobody has a high.
Well, Stephen Moffat
I'd say
does.
nobody has a higher opinion of Stephen Moffat's work than Stephen Moffat.
Okay.
True.
I did
True.
Another podcast a couple of weeks back, and we were talking about Stephen Moffat, and he said, and we mentioned it, he said, yeah, so many people have said they nearly stopped watching during the Stephen Moffat years.
Yeah. Yeah. You were one of those people, if I recall.
Yeah. And I'd been watching since 1981, you know. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we should just get started. We got a packed episode today.
Yeah.
So welcome to 3-2 Who, the monthly Doctor Who podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and with me as always are my two favorite Whovians, Mike and James. How are you two today?
Oh, just ducky.
I'm deeply regretting not putting Vaseline over my lens as they did in the Web Planet, because you can see me fresh from the gym at the moment, and I think the more Vaseline and soft focus I could have made it, the better.
You need your own focus puller.
Well, I need a puller. Whether or not I'm focusing is another matter.
Oh my goodness.
You don't need to focus when you're being pulled.
No, usually not.
By the way, just
usually not.
On a similar note, I was on Twitter. I saw something about a snack called Fluffernutter.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Isn't that both sides of the isn't that both jobs in porn in one go?
Yes.
Yes. It pretty much is. It's a sandwich with peanut butter and marshmallow fluff together.
Oh.
And it's even better if you add banana.
Yes, if you add banana,
take out the peanut butter. Anyway, that's enough food, because I haven't eaten yet either today. So kind of yeah.
Oh, we don't need to make you hungry. Okay. So, unfortunately, that brings us to Who News, where I'm going to make you hungry again. So, this is not quite Who News, but it's tangentially related because of the Fourth Doctor. So, the UK's favorite sweets have been named, and a retro pick takes the crown. So, the winner has beaten out the likes of the Drumlick Lollies, Love Hearts, and Tang Fastics. Our mouths are watering just thinking about all that sugary goodness, but there's one in particular that Brits go crazy for above all others. So what is the best sweet in the UK, you ask? Why, it's Jelly Babies.
So I just happy place for a moment with big bowl of jelly babies.
Yes! Yes! Oh, God, they're so good. And they're much better when you get them fresh. If you order them off of Amazon, the likelihood that you're going to get fresh ones is pretty low. I've gotten some that were almost as fresh as you get over in the UK, but they start to crystallize because of the sugar content, just like honey does. So you know how like when honey starts to get old, it crystallizes.
You can't hold Jelly Babies under the tap to revive them, sadly.
No, they just melt away if you do
They're
that.
like cotton candy.
Yeah, they get very grainy as they get older, and I mean they're still tasty, but the texture is not there. But oh, they are so good when they're fresh. They're just like little.
Are they shaped like a baby?
Yes, they're shaped like a little baby, almost like.
Unless you get the specialist
almost
ones,
like gummy bears.
Unless you get the specialist ones, which are jelly OAPs.
Mm.
And they have walking sticks and Zimmer frames.
Oh my goodness.
Oh God.
Oh my goodness.
Little sugar cane walking stick. I love it.
So yeah, 65% of Brits favored the fruit flavored treat and said it's loved because it makes people nostalgic for their childhood. And though I think it's the continued popularity of the Fourth Doctor that might have a little something to do with that.
He's 90. Tom Baker
I
turned
know.
90 the other week. It's like, my neck.
And he doesn't look like Tom anymore. He's gotten so skinny.
Age.
It's so.
For a
the
Time
good
Lord,
news, though,
you'd think he would have been better at this.
the good news though
Yeah.
is in an interview that Big Finish did, they said they have got enough Tom Baker in the can to last them another few years. They've been
he's been quite prolific up to his 90
they
birthday.
learned their lesson a few years back when they had to curtail one of their ranges because the elderly actor passed away. So yeah, they've kind of been really cramming it in with the others to make sure.
Yeah. I know he'd or his PR people had put out quite a few posts saying that he was doing this Big Finish novel or this one or this one or this one. Yeah, like constantly. And then that kind of tapered off as he hit 90. And I think he's having a little bit of cognitive problems now.
Yeah.
Because an interview they did with him just a while back, he was sometimes a little funny during the interview. So, Tom, we love you. We hope you stick around for another 90 years.
Well, I mean, that might be a bit excessive.
Yeah, I don't know that we want him sticking around for another. I mean, 180-year-old Tom Baker. Come on.
There isn't enough gin.
Maybe we should.
Probably not.
We should really build a Dalek and put him inside it.
Oh.
He can be the new Davros,
right? Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So speaking of doctors, because that's all we do here, Mike had a question about the 15th Doctor's wardrobe and why it was changing so often, and and all that. And so apparently a lot of people have had that question because the Whoniverse, there was a news article that basically said, why is the 15th Doctor's wardrobe so varied? And costume designer Pam Down discussed the challenges of dressing a new Doctor and in the latest issue of Doctor Who magazine. And part of the excerpt says, when it comes to clothes, the Doctor normally has a few variations on his classic silhouette, but the 15th Doctor's wardrobe is becoming bigger and better than ever. Ahead of Ncuti Gatwa's first full series, Doctor Who magazine spoke to costume designer Pam Down about the creation of a more fashion-forward Time Lord. Designing the costume for any of the Doctors is a huge responsibility, but Pam Down has that much on a grander scale. I can't read today. Because this Doctor doesn't just stick to one outfit. And she said, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's a blessing because I get bored otherwise. No, actually, that's not true. These scripts are so ambitious, there's no way I could get bored. But this does increase the load. But it also is a joy because Ncuti just wears clothes so well. He's a dream to dress. Russell made it clear he wants the Doctor to change now and then. Well, quite often, really. The great thing about Ncuti is he really gets it. When you put something on him, he likes it. He really wears it. You can put that same outfit on somebody else and it will wear them. Put it on him and he owns it, and it makes a massive difference to the costume designer. So that's the reason that Ncuti keeps changing clothes every 5 minutes.
And absolutely nothing to do with the merchandise opportunities for the Ncuti.
No, nothing.
So I'm having flashbacks to the 1980s when a company called Daypol were releasing the little miniature kind of posable figures, and they were renowned for exactly the same figure, just with a different paint job over and over again. Yes.
Well, this will make the toy makers very happy, because they're going to have so many different versions of the 15th Doctor.
And the great thing
collect.
Is they're not all the same silhouette, so they're actually going to have to do new sculpts each time.
Yes, they will, because some of his outfits are wildly different than the others.
Hey, I just think we just make like a Ncuti Barbie doll and just include the wardrobe. You just sell the wardrobe separate.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. So
that is a good idea. That is
Plus,
a really, as long as it's anatomically
that's right. Then
correct.
we can take it off and see what he's packing.
He's packing a sonic
Look at his
screwdriver,
sonic screwdriver.
Right? Yeah.
No, not his one. His one looks like it's been slammed inside a book. Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a little weird.
The garage door remote opener that he has. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So what say we get on to our topic?
I got one other thing. Which was some news from yesterday.
Oh,
yeah.
Do please.
So, in kind of an update to previous news, the Celestial Toymaker animation got its world premiere yesterday. Basically, every time there is a Doctor Who release, the British Film Institute hold a screening of either one story from the box set or for the animations. They do it for the animation. And The Celestial Toymaker was premiered yesterday. The overall comments seem to have been that a lot of work has been done since the trailer was released, because the trailer did not go down too well. It's got a very unique animation style. People who were at the event yesterday said it actually comes across a lot better when you see the full story than it did in the trailer that was released. And certainly the images that have been put out show that it looks like work has been done on the characters and the kind of the overall feel, to the extent that apparently the premiere was yesterday, which was Saturday, and it was delivered to the British Film Institute nearly at midnight on Friday. They cut it really to the bone.
That is close.
So yeah. The release date hasn't been announced yet. It is up for pre-order on Amazon and stuff like that. But yeah, it's got the premiere yesterday. It's gone down really well, and it does look like either the trailer was an early rendering or something like that, or they've taken some of the feedback on board and tweaked things around a bit.
Excellent. That's nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they've done it justice.
Well, we shall see when it comes out, because it is a very, very different animation style to anything that's been released before for Who.
Well, that can be good. I mean, it can be bad, but it can also be really good. I mean, new animation styles are fun.
As long as it's not anime style.
No, but I have got a load of fan-created anime in my collection. Some of which is blooming brilliant.
Okay.
Yes. There was some 10th Doctor ones that were really good. I've got the whole the Blu-ray for that.
Not a big fan of the anime styling.
Fantastic.
Anyway, yes. So on to today's Go for It, Ace. Go for Eric. Sorry.
Go for Ace.
She has longer hair than I do.
Everybody has longer hair than you do.
Just about.
Except for Patrick Stewart.
Yeah. As James spilled, our topic for this month is Ace. And so I'm going to give a little quick rundown, a little quick biography, which really doesn't cover hardly any of Ace's story, but it gives it a good go at that. So Ace was a companion of the 7th Doctor, played by Sophie Aldred. Ace's real name was either Dorothy Gale or Dorothy Gale McShane. She was initially a brash and reckless teenager, but Ace matured significantly into a strong, independent adult over her many years with the Doctor. Favoring homemade explosives, a baseball bat, and her ghetto blaster, she was a marked difference to Mel, who, like every scene, was screaming her lungs out.
Only on the TV. She's matured a lot in the audios and everything else.
Right, right. So, born on Earth, Ace was a central player in fighting the return of Fenric and battled many of the Doctor's most infamous foes alongside him, including the Daleks, Cybermen, and the Master. Her timeline was complicated during an encounter with the Quantum Anvil, where she saw her future fracture into various different but still all valid possible outcomes. Amongst these futures were continued travels with the Doctor, a life in 1887 France, and becoming a Time Lord after attending the Academy on Gallifrey. Within that version of her future, she was given a TARDIS of her own, and she became an agent of the Celestial Intervention Agency, the CIA. Come on, guys.
That was from the 1970s. Come on, we're allowed one every few decades.
Eventually, due to partially to the erupting Time War, Ace had her memory erased by Irving Braxiatel, who also further meddled with her personal history. She was returned to Earth, where she set up a charity, a charitable Earth. Ace. Oh my goodness. The acronyms.
That's
Doctor Who.
Two.
Oh my gosh.
That's 2.
Yes.
So that takes us up to the 90s. Okay, so
there is another one in Ace's story as well. So in 2022, Ace met fellow former companion Tegan Jovanika upon Kate Stewart requesting help at UNIT, allowing her to meet the 13th Doctor and help stop the Master once again. Afterwards, Ace joined a companion support group started by Graham O'Brien to share her stories about the Doctor, even helping comfort Yaz, who had just left the Doctor before her regeneration. And that is my little quick biography of Ace. And so I am going to turn it over to Mike now.
I don't have a lot to say about Ace. My first experience with Ace was in The Power of the Doctor with the 13th Doctor. And my first take on that was, who the hell is Ace? And why is she important to the storyline? And
she's wicked.
Yes. And I didn't really give it much thought. I mean, it was a great storyline and all. I didn't really give much thought until, we started this podcast. And now I'm having to learn a lot more about Doctor Who than I ever knew before. And of course, I went back and I watched the origin story, and with the seventh Doctor, Sylvester. What's his last name? Not
McCoy.
O'Brien. McCoy. I know it was something Irish or Scottish. O'Brien, McCoy. It's like, but she was really young in that story. She was only 16 years old. Was she?
Yeah. Sophie was 24 at the time.
Right, but the character was 16.
Character was 16, yes.
So was she the youngest companion storyline-wise? Or did the Doctor ever have anybody ever younger than 16?
That is a really challenging one to answer.
Okay.
First Doctor travelled with Susan, who was officially his granddaughter.
I was going to say that was his granddaughter, yeah.
In Marco Polo, I think she claims that she's either 15 or 16, which would tie in with her being a school child at Cold Hill School. But of course, being a Time Lord type Gallifreyan, we have no idea what she really was.
Right.
The First Doctor also travelled with Dodo, who is in The Celestial Toymaker, who, again, allegedly was a school child, but quite frankly, when you see pictures of her, looks even older than Sophie Aldred does now.
Yeah. There was also Adric.
Adric, again, an interestingly aged alien. Purpa Gilliam, the American, with the Fifth Doctor, she would have been about 18 or 19.
Okay.
Nyssa, alien, we don't really know anything about her age. Zoe Heriot, second Doctor's companion. Again, difficult one because of the futuristic setting. Again, she's supposed to be quite young. Victoria Waterfield, second Doctor. Very, very vague age. It's a challenging one to work out just from the TV series, the age of some of these companions.
Yeah.
There were some though that were sub 18, definitely.
Right. I just okay, well,
but I think when you're a Time Lord, everybody seems like a child.
Well, of course, everybody's you're 6,000 years old or whatever it is that
right.
Yeah. And that's the thing. But Ace is a great character. I think she taught the Doctor a lot over the years and over their travels. And I think that's the purpose of the companion in the first place, is to be the what do they call that, the audience for the Doctor,
the hook, the audience identification figure.
There you go, and she brings things to the companions always bring things to the Doctor, saying, "Hey, what about blah 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 blah," and makes the Doctor think. But and so going back and watching again It's always fun to watch an actor when they first come onto a show and when they leave the show, how they grow in that character. And Ace really grew throughout the years, throughout the companion travels, and became quite the, what's the word?
Badass.
Quite the badass. Yeah. So there you go. That's my take on Ace.
All right, James, do you want to go next or do you want me to go? Because mine will probably be a lot less.
You better go next because I have got seriously pages upon pages of notes.
Well, I actually collected more notes than I thought I was going to collect because I found some really great documentaries about Ace. So here's my little notes of things that I thought was really neat about Ace. So Ace was brought on during the start of the 25th anniversary. So that's kind of really cool. One of the things that Sophie said to the director one time during one episode, and I can't remember which episode it was, they wanted her to scream when I think it was Dragonfire, when the dragon came out, and she turned around and told the director, Ace doesn't scream. So that's why you see in Dragonfire, when the dragon comes, Mel is just like blasting her lungs out, and Ace is just like, okay.
Yeah.
So I love that. Also, Aldred was given a lot of say in Ace's costume. The Blue Peter badges on her jack are actually Sophie Aldred's badges, and she had to prove it because during the first day of filming with that jacket, somebody in the BBC saw those badges and called down to the studio and wanted to know if those were actually her badges, because you're not supposed to wear those Blue Peter badges unless you've earned them.
Please explain the Blue Peter badges for our listeners.
James would be better to describe it.
Okay.
Because he knows. He knows a little bit more about Blue Peter than I do.
Blue Peter's actually got a great long tradition of supporting Doctor Who as well. Anyway, Blue Peter is short version. It is a kids' TV magazine type program. It started, I think it was 58. I think it's older than Doctor Who.
I think so.
Yes, it's 1958 or so. And basically, they developed a badge scheme where kind of if you did something noteworthy or you sent in something particularly creative, you got a little shield type badge with the Blue Peter ship on it. And at one point, that would get you free entry into all kinds of museums and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Sadly, that had to stop because there became, I kid you not, a roaring trade for them on eBay.
Yes. Which also, like, I mean, this is before eBay, of course, but apparently there was quite a black market trade of the badges going on. And so one of Sophie's badges she earned, her and her brother made a water-powered rocket launcher out of a laundry detergent bottle. So that was her little science project, and that got her one of the badges. I can't remember what she said the other one she got was.
Two other side notes. First of all, Raymond Cusick, who designed the Daleks, long-standing bitch fight with the BBC over royalties and stuff like that because of contracts. But he was interviewed by Blue Peter about them, and basically they gave him the gold Blue Peter badge, which is the highest possible one, because they felt it was such a fantastic contribution to television.
Indeed.
And then in the 70s, Blue Peter, one of the hosts, was a gentleman called Peter Purvis, who you will see coming up on Blu-ray in the Celestial Toymaker because he played the companion.
Yes.
So he went from saving the universe to basically saving the planet, because that's what Blue Peter people do.
Okay. All right. Thank you very
much.
But
yeah, so of the two badges she has on her jacket now, one of them is a replacement because she actually lost one during one of the first filmings in one of the quarries, because all companions had to be thrown into quarries in that period of Doctor Who, of course. But yeah, so she's hoping someday somebody will find a Blue Peter badge in that quarry and just like treasure it as much as she did. So also, a lot of the badges on Ace's jacket actually belong to Aldred. The badges on the jacket change, disappear, and move throughout the run of the series. And that was just because they had to have, stunt jackets and jackets, because they threw her in the water all the time. Sophie was in the water, or Ace was thrown in the water like almost on a continuous basis.
Silver Nemesis, Battlefield. I think
Curse of Fenric.
Curse of Fenric, yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god. And then from the
she got thrown in the water
and
a
if
lot.
she wasn't thrown in the water, she was baking to death in the desert in Survival. She was being kind of blown up. Yeah.
What another interesting thing is, Sophie actually rides a motorcycle, and during Survival, she gets on a motorcycle, and the Doctor pulls her off, and the Doctor gets on the motorcycle, and Sylvester does not know how to ride a motorcycle. They gave him a little quick intro on how it works. He took off on it, and he had to dump it when he got to the end because nobody told him how the brakes work.
Do you know the really sad punchline to that story?
Go for it.
They'd already had to teach him how to ride one for Delta and the Bannermen the season before.
Well, yeah, he's
He's a little bit dotty, yeah.
yeah.
And that was back in the 80s.
There's also a story Sophie had about when they were driving the van through the tunnel and they switched places in the van. Sophie's a great driver. Sylvester, not so much, especially without his glasses. And he just kept telling the sound people in the back and Sophie, hey, make sure you tell me when I'm getting close to the light poles because I don't have my glasses on and I can't really see.
I hadn't heard that one.
I'll send you the
Yeah.
interview. It's
Oh my
with
God.
with a cosplayer. It's all about the Ace jacket, but she did have a
Jesus.
little fun bit
Wow.
of trivia about that. Like I said, because they had to have multiple jackets, the badges disappeared and ended up in different places just because of the quick changeovers.
Yeah.
Sometimes they had to do because some of the badges they only had a couple of, and so they had to swap between jackets. Some of them they had multiples of, and were able to kind of keep a stunt jacket available. But anytime they had to put it back on Sophie because hers was wet, they had to bring over her badges and put them on so that they wouldn't, so that it wouldn't be such a break in continuity, even though it was a pretty big break in continuity.
It's one of those things where you would think kind of like you're creating a character that's got all this action ahead. And you would think, do we really want to put her in a jacket with loads of loose, irreplaceable bits pinned to it? Or should we maybe...
Yeah. maybe think about something.
Doctor Who is littered with this kind of thing, though.
Yes. Ace loved to tease the Doctor by calling him Professor, although when the stakes were truly raised, she would revert to calling him Doctor. She never liked to discuss her parents, insisting that she ain't got no mom and dad. So went on a mission to retrieve her boombox, her beloved boombox at Coal Hill School, because she had mistakenly left it there in a time period when boomboxes with integrated circuits were not a thing. And of course the Daleks show up and she has to whack them with her baseball bat, which was enhanced with the power of the Hand of Omega. I haven't seen that episode, so I honestly
it's a classic.
Don't know,
it's
so
a really good one.
That baseball bat has some pretty damn good punch though against the Daleks, because she knocks several of the Dalek bumps off and knocks the stock off.
And the really sad thing is, there was a stunt Dalek involved. So basically, the sequence was Ace was about to attack the Dalek because they had the proper problem.
Yeah.
The director was supposed to see old cut. They were supposed to bring the stunt Dalek in with the easily removable bits and everything. The director didn't call cut loud enough, and Sophie attacked the real one with the baseball bat.
Oh no!
I thought it looked really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching that in some of the clips of her, and I was like, wow, they really just went to town on that Dalek, because it was a good looking one. It's one of the white and gold ones. It was really nice.
Good story. It's a very good one as well for themes that are sadly quite relevant today as well. I won't say any more, because if you've not seen it, it would be a big giveaway.
I did see a clip of that where at the end of Remembrance where where she's talking about some of the things she did in her childhood.
No. I mean, this is the story of Remembrance itself is very
okay.
Okay. And say it's not come out on Blu-ray yet, but it has been out on DVD for many years.
So she did explore her bisexual side during Survival with and has a bit of an attachment to Kara, one of the cheetah people, although Kara was sadly killed by the Master. This is one of those. It was very thinly veiled. Bisexuality.
And this is something that I'm going to be touching on.
They got away with it, and I'm pleased that they did.
I'm going to be touching on this because it's a very strange topic. Rona Munro, who wrote Survival, wanted to make it far more blatant. So technically, there is nothing in Survival that makes it that Ace is bisexual.
No, but the scene with her and Kara is pretty
it's loaded.
Like I said, thinly veiled. It's very,
but bearing in mind
very
this
loaded.
Was 7:30 on a weekday evening on BBC One. It was never actually official, because of course in the late 80s homosexuality in England was a fucking big issue. There were death threats being sent to actors for playing gay or bisexual characters. There were massive press issues with it. So technically, there's nothing that states it in Survival.
No. But it was, like I said, for people who were bisexual or gay or lesbian, it was a big scene because it was a nice little tip of the hat that, hey, we see you, even though we can't blatantly say it.
Awkwardness ahead in my bits for that, I'm afraid.
Oh yes, I'm absolutely 100% sure there is, because if the BBC does anything well, it's awkwardness.
You have no idea.
So Aldred actually wrote her own Doctor Who novel. It's called At Childhood's End, which is our third acronym, ACE.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Where she brings clarity to the conclusion of Ace's time with the Doctor and explains the multiple offshoots of the Ace stories throughout the years by the inclusion of the Quantum Anvil, a temporal possibility engine that fractured her timeline. She got to redon her gear and wield her beloved baseball bat in The Power of the Doctor, and shared a touching scene with a hologram of her Doctor and got to resolve the acrimony and conflict that they had when they departed. And then, of course, she saw him again in Tales of the TARDIS, and she was happy that he was a real flesh and blood Doctor this time, because she does mention that, hey, last time I saw you, you were a hologram. Ace is hailed as being the first truly modern companion in the Doctor Who series.
I would agree with that, definitely, yeah.
Yes. And Sophie Aldred still owns the original Ace jacket, and she still wears it on occasion when she has call to. And one of the pins on Ace's jacket, this is my last one, is actually the smiley face pin from Watchmen. The smiley face with the blood dripping down it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, she had no idea it was from the Watchmen, and of course when she got on set, of course all the geeks that run behind the scenes were just like geeking out over the fact that you got a Watchmen pin. So yeah, because it's a pretty big novel to those of us who are, shall we say, geeky and love superhero stories that aren't the typical crappy, superheroes are all good stories.
And yeah, before I get into my uber geeky bit, I've had very lucky. I've met Sophie at a couple of conventions. She is just as fantastic as she appears in interviews and on screen.
Oh yeah, she just seems like such a sweetheart.
She is an amazing person. So before we get into the Ace bit, I just wanted to say, Sophie Aldred as a person is seemingly brilliant. Given how badly the BBC treated her in Sylvester in 1989, she's another one who would have been perfectly within her rights to say fuck you and just walk away from it. She has not left the character of Ace since 1987. She has remained faithful with it.
Hold on, I got a little thing that I forgot to interject here. When they called her to do The Power of the Doctor, they were like, what do you think Ace is doing now? and she was like, well, I would think she's kind of grown up and gone on to do some, more
adult things,
high-powered stuff. And they're like, do you think she'd be wearing what do you think she'd be wearing? And she's like, I don't know, maybe a high-powered business suit. And they're like, go out and buy one. So she's like, I got you. I'll go out and buy one. And so yeah, that was her pick for a suit, and her suit in that. So
I'd say she's narrated all kinds of audiobooks for Doctor Who. She's a brilliant narrator. There's so much
lovely voice.
So getting into the kind of the geeky and the trivia, and you'll forgive me, I'm actually going to, for once, I'm going to rely on notes for this, because
oh my gosh,
when I was putting this together, I was thinking, it can't have been that complicated. The 90s for Doctor Who, I had forgotten just how absolutely insane things got. Okay. So you've taken us basically up to Survival, and
yes.
That was 1989. Oh shit, I've got 35 years to cover. Right. And believe and there has not been a single year since 1987 when there has not been an officially licensed and endorsed Doctor Who story released featuring Ace.
Yeah, she's one of the longest running, most prolific companions.
But it does mean that things are going to get really bloody complicated.
And I know what you're talking about. Some of the things that, like, they're redrawing of her after, for the comic books after, after Survival were pretty,
Right.
shall we say, a little too racy for. They were trying to pull in comic book boys and
comic nerds.
Put her in tight leather
Spandex
catsuits
stuff.
and,
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
No, I mean, no. I mean, there's definitely no pictures of Sophie Aldred in tight leather spandex kind of latex.
No,
not at all.
Just, if you ever meet her, ask her about Pervo Shine. Right. Okay. God, I wish I was joking, by the way. Okay.
I know.
That sounds terrible.
Right. Because when you were talking about the Quantum Anvil and everything, I don't think you kind of realise just how absolutely weird the story of Ace became.
Oh, yeah, because the Doctor pushes her into the
Quantum Anvil.
No.
I mean, before the Quantum Anvil was written about.
Oh, okay,
right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Doctor's kind of been an ass to her throughout the years. Even though he loves her, he's done some things that are a bit morally questionable.
But that's nothing compared to what the BBC have done in the notes.
True.
Right.
I mean, the BBC are definitely...
Okay. So, the TV episodes ended in 1989, and one of the things that kind of may not have been such a big thing over in America, but was huge in England in the 70s and 80s, they novelised the TV stories. Okay. Because, of course, we didn't have VCRs, there weren't easy ways to get them. So if you wanted to relive the adventures, there was the books. In the 70s and early 80s, they went through a spell of kind of real minimalist adaptations. You know, you were lucky if you got all the dialogue. In some of them, there were literally no descriptions of the physical nature of the character. But towards the end of the 80s, they started realising that fans wanted more than this. So the Curse of Fenric novel was a massively expanded version of the story. And that was where we first learned about Ace's long-term future in France, living with the ancestor of Sorin. Okay. As was kind of vaguely the norm at the time, the TV companions weren't really in the comic strips in Doctor Who magazine. But with the series basically coming to an end unofficially on television, Ace in 1990 joins the comic strips. In a lovely touch to continuity with TV, the reason she wasn't in it previously was because she was having a holiday in the Cretaceous period watching dinosaurs, as she'd wanted to do in Happiness Patrol. So in 1990, you've got Ace in the comic strips in Fellow Travellers, Mark of Mandragora, Party Animals, featuring a Beep the Meep cameo, and a story called The Chameleon Factor. In 1991, that's when the novels started. That's when they realised that Doctor Who wasn't coming back, and so they started releasing the full-length new original novels of stories that had never been told before. First one was called Time Worm Genesis,
which we've talked about.
And if you go to, bear in mind, I should have released it by the time you're listening, HB Who Tube. I have a YouTube channel, and I have done a complete unabridged reading of the talking book of Time Worm Genesis on there.
Nice.
And also the next 7 books. Might be the next 8. Might be the next 8, depending upon how quickly I get to it. Right. But we've got the problem that you got Ace in the comic strips, and you got Ace in the novels. And the two are pretty separate. There is no kind of crossover.
Mm-hmm.
In May 1992, a comic strip called The Grief, which features the 7th Doctor and Ace, because they're still the ongoing Doctor and Doctor and Companion, actually starts to refer to the Virgin New Adventures. And then in June 1992, there is an Ace free comic strip called Ravens, which is set during one of the Virgin New Adventures. And the reason it's Ace free is because in the book that it's set during, Ace is off negotiating with terrorists. Yeah. The first batch of Virgin New Adventures are a really weird read because no one has a bloody clue what's going on. You know. And before we carry on with the continuity, I've actually got the 1991, if I can get my thing to let me go to it, the writer's guidelines, come on, for, sorry, my tablet is playing up today, for the Virgin New Adventures for prospective authors. Okay. The first 7 or so pages are all about how to submit your work, what they're looking for, but it ends with 8 paragraphs about, or 8 sections about the character of Ace.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. A lot of it is stuff that is well known.
Ace doesn't scream.
Right, so, firstly, please note that Ace is no longer a child. She is still impetuous, insightful, impatient, with authority and scathing of bullshit, full of energy and vehemently anti-racist. But she is also clever, resourceful and daring, and she has learned a lot in her travels with the Doctor. After all, she has been with him for 3 years in our time, and we assume the same sort of time in the TARDIS's timeline. She must be at least 19 years old now. Which would be nice if it wasn't for the fact that some of the early books said she'd been travelling with the Doctor for 5 or 6 years. You know, they wrote the guidelines, then threw them out the window. Yeah, Ace hates her mother, hates her real name. There's a bit kind of about the ongoing Fenric story. Paragraph 5. Those of a sensitive disposition who have seen Dragonfire, block your ears now. Ace reveals that she is not a virgin. Although Ian Briggs says...
The shock.
Although Ian Briggs says that a close reading of his novelisation of Dragonfire shows that she lost her cherry to the interstellar conman Glitz, which can't have been a very pleasant experience, particularly for such a young and vulnerable girl. There is a lot of sex in the early New Adventures. Surprisingly little of it actually involving Ace. Talks about the epilogue to Fenric, and yeah, talks about the development of the character and stuff. But yeah, there were 8 whole sections of the writer's guidelines devoted to Ace.
Well, she's a complicated character.
Which we're now going to pick up on to take us into the next batch of New Adventures and the hellhole of the mid-90s. Right. So, in October 1992, we have a comic strip called Cat Litter, which is actually... Oh, there's a reason, don't worry. Which is actually the last story to feature Ace in the comic strip for a while. In the same month, the book Love and War comes out, which sees Ace finally depart from the Doctor. Because one of the things that kind of they didn't know what was going on is, you know, we don't know if the series is coming back, so we can't necessarily write Ace out. So she leaves in October 92. Yeah, in April 93, she's back. But in that gap, she has spent 3 years away from the Doctor, and she's become an embattled war ace type bitch. Hence the Lycra type outfits, because that's her kind of body armor sort of thing. It turns out, though, that Ace had other reasons for rejoining the Doctor, which are revealed in the book in May 1993 called Lucifer Rising, which actually foreshadows, bizarrely, stuff that happens in the 2010s. We then get to August 93. Ace has returned to the comic strips, and there is a comic strip called Final Genesis. Now, by this time, the comics are trying to tie in with the books, which they fuck up spectacularly, because Final Genesis is about the Doctor, Bernice, and Ace travelling to a parallel Earth where the Doctor has actually died and the Silurians have taken over. Sadly, in October 1993, so just September, October, 2 months later, there would be a novel called Blood Heat, where they travel to a parallel time where the Doctor has died and the Silurians have taken. Oh God, yeah. Right. So Ace finally leaves the Doctor in February 1995 in a book called Set Piece, and this sets up Ace's departure to ancient France to live with Count Sorin's relative. So, of course, everything is happy, all the timelines are coherent, and that's only February 1995. Right. There is then wind of the Paul McGann TV movie, and the Doctor Who comic strip realise that they've got to start kind of thinking about the transition and everything. In July 1995, there's a comic strip called Curse of the Scarab, which is actually a Fifth Doctor and Perry one, but what no one realises is it's the first part of a build-up sequence of stories to a story called Ground Zero. Okay. This is where things get really, really awkward. May 1996, the TV movie comes out. Features the Seventh Doctor at the start, but no Ace. Apparently, they did consider bringing her back for it, but they thought that'd be too confusing. Also, in May 1996, there is the 50th new adventure published, and as it's a celebratory one, Ace cameos. Also in May 1996, Ground Zero starts, which is a Seventh Doctor and Ace comic strip. The penultimate cliffhanger of which, if you don't want spoilers, listen away now, Ace bites the big one. She actually dies. And I'm not talking like dies and then is resurrected. I mean, she dies.
Dead.
She's basically, yeah. They distance themselves from the Virgin New Adventures because they want to have the comic strip as their own kind of ongoing thing with the Eighth Doctor. The problem is, in March 1997, the penultimate new adventure is published called Lungbarrow, which features a cameo from Ace, where she then basically heads off into the sunset again, heading for Count Sorin. Ugh. But of course,
my brain's starting to hurt.
But of course, that's fine because that's the end of the story. Oh shit! You thought the quantum anvil was gonna get complicated. You have no idea, because in May 1998, a company called BBV start releasing a series of audio dramas featuring Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred as the Professor and Ace. Well, they do until the BBC copyright lawyers get involved, and then it becomes the Dominic and Alice. But basically, it's Sylvester and Sophie playing the Seventh Doctor and Ace, just very unofficially. There are 9 of those releases, which carry on from 98 till July 1999, and in July 1999, Big Finish get the official license to do Doctor Who. Okay. By this time, Virgin have lost the license to do the books, and the BBC are in charge of the books. So you would think, oh good, a nice big reset switch, we can forget about all that past continuity. June 1999 is the first, is a BBC past Doctor adventure, Seventh Doctor and Ace, called Storm Harvest, featuring a race of monsters called the Krill. In June 2001, Big Finish release a Seventh Doctor and Ace story where they encounter the Krill, which is a sort of semi-sequel unofficially to the BBC book. Things are going to get really complicated, because in between those, in July 2001, and then in February 2002, there is a BBC attempt to revive the series called Death Comes to Time. This is an online audio drama, very, very primitive slideshow type animation, which features a grown-up, mature Ace, who barely spends any time with the Seventh Doctor, which is just as well, because at the end, the Doctor dies. Don't ask, it's never been dealt with. And someone once said that Death Comes to Time is the equivalent to going into your friend's sandpit and not just shitting in it, but leaving broken glass amongst the mines you leave there. In October 2000, we get Big Finish actually going back to the Virgin New Adventure days and giving us some stories featuring the War Ace type Ace. In October 2001, they do an audio called Colditz, which is really complicated because it's a massive time paradox story. It features Nazis, as you would imagine. But the problem is the early Virgin New Adventures also featured Ace fighting Nazis, and it's pretty much impossible to reconcile the two of these stories together. Colditz will be coming back to in a while, because it's going to cause even more problems than you could ever possibly imagine. In September 2002, there is a universally loved, hated, audio called The Rapture, in which we discover that Ace has a brother who had never been mentioned before and thankfully is never mentioned since. And then in May 2003, in the BBC books, they kill off Ace again. Only Ace is still alive in the book where the Doctor discovers Ace's dead body. It turns out that this is actually a crossover with the 8th Doctor books that are going on at the same time.
Okay.
In the 8th...
My brain really hurts
now. In
the
8th Doctor books, there is a race of beings trying to corrupt the Doctor's past by killing off all his old companions. In prime time, the Doctor discovers Ace's dead body, and then in Loving the Alien, actually Ace escapes death, which then has implications for the 8th Doctor range. It's going to get worse. Right. In June 2004, Big Finish suddenly realise that they've done pretty much everything they can with the 7th Doctor and Ace, so they introduce a new companion to join them called Hex.
Okay.
And they accidentally, apparently genuinely accidentally, end up doing a big 10-year story arc which culminates in a battle with the 7th Doctor, Ace and Hex against Fenric. By accident they came up with it. There was a plot point in one of the stories which they didn't resolve in that story because they ran out of time. They meant to resolve it in the next one and they kept running out of time. So they suddenly realised that they had this big plot point which was unresolved, and they turned it into a Fenric battle.
Okay.
Right. In April 2011, 1989 came back. Because although the series ended in 1989, there were already plans for season 27, which would have seen Ace written out, and a new companion join by the name of Rain. Yeah.
Yay, Rain.
Big Finish, who are always looking to do kind of new things, by this stage had actually started doing a range of audio releases which were audio versions of stories that had never been made because they'd been kind of pulled at one stage or another prior to being produced. So they actually got the kind of the storyline for season 27 and did all 4 stories. So you had Ace and Rain. They just didn't do them in the order that was intended, and they didn't do them with Ace being written out at the end of the series, which is what had been intended. But these are lost stories. Therefore, that definitely doesn't matter. That definitely doesn't count. Except Rain then comes over into a main range release, which is kind of like an unofficial follow-up to Colditz, because it features the time-traveling Nazi from Colditz as one of the heroes.
What?
Yes! And unfortunately, that then launches a whole other ongoing storyline in the main range. So Ace's story is now, she's left for France, she's died in the comic strips, she's died and been revived in the BBC Past Doctor Adventures, she's now travelling with Hex, but no, she's actually gone back and had the adventures that she would have had the series not been cancelled, only she hasn't left at the end of those because the books then kept her going. And are you ready for this?
No, but go ahead.
Sure,
Yeah.
let's make it even more complicated.
Because not only in the Gallifrey range does Ace turn up as the CIA agent mentioned in the Quantum Anvil, soon after that, in a very bizarre twist, in a slot that no one can work out, Mel starts travelling with the 7th Doctor and Ace again.
Okay.
And that has never actually had a conclusion, unlike the Hex storyline, which had a definite end. Hex died, came back, travelled with the Doctor again, then left to have kids. Only in December 2018, they decided they wanted to do more Hex stories, so started going back to insert Ace and Hex stories into the gaps between the previous Ace and Hex stories.
Wow.
Well, at least they didn't try to continue on after she died, or whatever.
Except...
Oh, they did. Never mind.
Well, sure, why not? Yeah.
There was a short-lived spin-off on TV of Doctor Who called Class.
Oh, yeah.
And Big Finish
I love that
Big
show.
Finish got the rights to do audios of Class, and an older Ace turned up in one of the Class audios. Meaning we've now got Ace in the comics, the Virgin New Adventures, the BBC Past Doctor Adventures, the unofficial BBV stories, the Big Finish main range, the Big Finish Lost range, another range of Big Finish Ace stories. And you know how she met the Doctor in Power of the Doctor?
Yeah.
They also then did an adventure of her seemingly set after Power of the Doctor where she encountered the 10th Doctor.
Okay.
All right. Wow.
Oh no. We've got 2 more bits to go.
Oh,
no.
Lord. Okay.
Right.
Poor Ace.
Because in kind of like her last appearance in the main range, because Big Finish no longer do a monthly range, they do their releases differently. Grey Man of the Mountain, there are again hints allegedly of bisexuality. I spent this morning going through the script. I couldn't bloody find them, so I think people are reading far too much into it, to be honest. But the reason it's complicated is right the way through, from the time the TV series ended to the Grey Man of the Mountain, Ace has lots of sex. She admits to all her childhood crushes. She leaves at one point the Doctor because the Doctor's killed off her lover and everything. But
Yeah, that was a dick move.
Well, there are other reasons behind it, but anyway.
I know,
Yeah.
but yeah, it seems kind of harsh.
The problem for me is that every single encounter she has had, every single fantasy she's had on the page, kind of thing, has always been with men. It would have been lovely if this idea of Ace being bisexual was kind of more definite. as you say, there's the overtones of it in Survival, but
Yeah.
then we literally go for like 30 years before the next,
Before there's any kind of overtones.
before there's
again.
any kinds of overtones again. And I mean, we're not talking about, oh, she's got a little bit of, I mean, in some of the books, she has full-blown sex. She kind of, she bumps uglies with all kinds of aliens. She is rampant. And yet, strangely, she's not the one who dies with an alien STI in her system. That's a whole other companion. So to round off,
I'll tell you, I did get some bisexual vibes in The Power of the Doctor.
oh, I mean, I think there's coding. I think there's an awful lot of coding in there, but there's nothing definite, and that's what I think is missing.
True. Yeah.
There's so the last two bits. In 2020, Big Finish did an audio called Dark Universe, which reunites the Seventh Doctor with an older Ace. So actually, there is a kind of a 2020s Seventh and Ace where she's older. She is a charitable Earth type person. And if you want to know the real thing, yeah, Ace is now not having sex because she has now done Torchwood. But of course, Torchwood, which is renowned for being a highly sexed concept,
right? Like most of Torchwood was sex.
The three that she's done, they have paired her up with the OAP homosexual. They are brilliant. I mean, it's Sophie Aldred. It's a guy called Mr. Colchester. They are brilliant.
Wait! What's his name?
Mr. Colchester.
Oh, I thought you said Mr. Cockchester.
No, that's basically what he does to all the males in the.
Yes.
But yeah, the story of Ace. I mean, if you really want to kind of get a flavour of how chaotic the wilderness years were for Doctor Who, then just try and pick your way through Ace's timeline, because
it's very confusing.
It is, seriously. When I was researching this morning, I thought, oh, it'll take me half an hour, or whatever. And then when I suddenly remembered what it was like living through the 90s and trying to... so I'm reading the comics. They're referring to events that haven't happened for the Doctor yet, but refer back to the book that came out several months ago. Oh, yeah. It was a challenging decade. And...
for a lot of us.
Yeah. But Sophie Aldred was the constant right the way throughout it. As I said, in either print, in novel form, in comic strip form, in audio form, there has literally not been a single year since, I think, 1987 when there wasn't an official Ace story released. That is one hell of a staying power for a companion. Even Sarah Jane has not got that track record.
And she's got a pretty good track record. When it comes to companions sticking with the Doctor and showing back up again. Sarah Jane had a really decent track record.
Including a one-off random trip with the Seventh Doctor.
Indeed.
Including a second random one-off trip with the Seventh Doctor where she sort of died. Maybe. Possibly. It's complicated.
Perhaps.
But not as complicated as what happened to Sarah Jane in her own audios, where she was left on a cliffhanger floating in the depths of space. But then Series 3 of the audios got cancelled because she became popular on TV. Thanks, TV. Thanks for that.
Well, I do have to say I love the Sarah Jane adventures. They are great fun.
Yeah. But yeah, if you say the 90s... I love the wilderness years. I'm a child of the wilderness years. They kept me fascinated. They got me reading. They got me interested in kind of plot developments, character developments, and actually having to remember kind of like the contents of entire novels to refer back to. Because as you say, in Love and War, the Doctor kills off Ace's lover. I mean, there are good reasons.
Yes.
But what?
Yeah, well, he basically tricks him into sacrificing his life to that.
Don't often remember is that there's actually an ongoing story arc about the degeneration of the Doctor's personality through those stories. And that is part of the story. And it's not resolved until Ace comes back again.
Well, and it's brought back up again though during the last Doctor Who
Yeah.
episode, or the last special, because you know basically the doctor tells him, or Shooty's doctor tells 14 that, hey, you need to get yourself right. Therapy is important.
Yeah. And how long Ace spent travelling with the Doctor, we will never know. But if you add up the duration of all the stories, and I haven't mentioned all of the stories,
No, there's just tons
if
of
you
them.
add them all up, because there's loads of short stories as well. She must have spent the best part of like a decade travelling with the Seventh Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it was Benny who got to see him naked.
Poor Benny.
Yeah, actually, in the circumstances that it happened, definitely poor Benny.
Yeah, not the Doctor I wanted to see naked. Actually, none of them until David Tennant, pretty much.
I've seen David Tennant naked. It's quite nice.
Yeah, I've seen.
I don't know.
I've seen it live.
Eccleston would look hot naked.
Oh well.
So yeah, that's the story of Ace. That is the most thorough version that I could put together without literally listing kind of the plot details.
Days.
Yes, yeah. I just got started in it yesterday, thinking, oh man, this is going to be one of those hard to scrape up some stuff. And in the first 2 documentaries, I put together almost 2 pages worth of notes, and just like, wow, she is an interesting character, and then Sophie Aldred is just a phenomenally cool person.
Yeah,
she seems to genuinely love her fans, and seems to always have time for her fans. Like the interview that I watched with her was with a cosplayer who cosplays as Ace, talking about the jacket, and she's like, I got Sophie to be on my on my little show, to talk about the jacket, and she brought the original jacket, and like so there's one of the cool things is Sophie's like, oh yeah, this is definitely the original. I know because I've got the giant pocket sewn in here. So there was a giant pocket sewn in Ace's jacket so that she could carry cans of Nitro 9 with her.
Oh, I thought you were
when
going to say it was the reason why McCoy had giant pockets on his jacket. Do you know the reason?
Right. Yeah, for the scripts. And actually Sophie used it for that too when she wasn't carrying cans of Nitro 9, because during takes, Sylvester would he had one pocket for the incoming portions of the script, the things he had to do, and then when he was done with that scene, he would take those and put them in his outgoing pocket in his jacket. And Sophie only had the one big pocket, but she said it was nice because I could stow my script in there if we weren't doing anything where I had to blow something up.
Yeah, I had to say, I love the cans of Nitro 9. They're whipped cream cans. I loved it. Complete with a cap.
They're deodorant cans. They're not whipped cream. We don't talk.
She calls it.
We don't talk about Ace and whipped cream in the same sentence.
Right.
Okay.
I love it. What she calls it a what does she say? A Richter scale level of deodorant.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's a fantastic character, played by a lovely woman who just seems to get Doctor Who so
she does.
Well. I mean, she's been with Doctor Who basically since she started off. In fact, she was in a stage play with one of the guys who played a Dalek. And when she got the notice that she was going to be in Doctor Who, and he sent her a lovely postcard that said "Welcome to the family."
Aww.
Yeah.
Aww.
And
it was very, very nice. And she said that really started off her run with Doctor Who on just an amazing, upward climb.
And said she loves fans. She's so wonderful.
Yeah.
She's, I think, one of the greatest ones with the fans that I've met, and
she seems to be. Yeah, she seems to be, because I've watched several of her interactions at cons and stuff, and she just seems like she enjoys every minute of it.
Yeah.
The only person I've seen who maybe even comes close to her level of loving being with the fans and interacting is probably John Barrowman. because I've seen him 3 times, and all 3 times he was just insanely giggly and goofy with fans, and just had so much love for being around fans. David was actually pretty good too, but not quite as chaotic and fun as John was. When you're waiting in line to get John's autograph, it's a show in and of itself, because he does not stay behind the desk. There will be times when he gets out and surfs the crowd and just does crazy stuff. And like the first time I got an autograph from him, he stayed the entire time. The line was around the corner, through back hallways, because we couldn't fit us all in the queue. And so we're back hallways, and we're like, hey, we're never going to get this autographed. And so we're behind, we can't see anything because we're in a like a hallway in the back of the convention center. And here comes John running through the hallway and saying, don't worry, I'm going to get to you all. The line is long, but we're going to get to you all. Don't worry, I am staying. And the convention center said I can stay until I've signed every autograph for every person in this line. Don't worry, you'll get an autograph. And then he ran back, and then he came back several more times just to make sure everybody knew. He could have sent a runner to do that, but he did it himself.
Nice.
I love when actors really enjoy their fans, and Sophie seems like one of those people that just is like John, enjoys fans, which is excellent, because we don't need any grumpy doctors or companions. No. But anyways, I think we have gotten to the end of our little show. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this little trip, and I would like to remind you, there's no point in being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes, so be kind to yourself and each other. James, any parting words of wisdom?
To be honest, I don't think anything can top the story of Ace. So I'm just going to say, see you next month. And I know what topic you've selected for next month, and I'm going to I'm going to ruin it for you.
Oh. So as a little, as James brought it up, next month will be our favorite 10-dog canine.
And
yay, canine.
I'm gonna set you some questions which you're gonna hate me for, but that's next month. To be continued.
Okay, next month. I've got a whole month to prepare. Yeah. So, Mike, what are your final thoughts?
Hey, thanks again for tuning in. I just want to tell everybody, remember that time is relative, and it's very wibbly wobbly. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, guys.